Okay, great. So you can ask a question.
So you were saying that in the older days, people lived up to 900 years, some instances. So my question was, how is that the case? When if you look back towards the caveman days, they used to live to maybe 20, 30 years old, if that, because of diseases, things of that nature. And you told me that apparently you don't have to eat food, that there's ways to harness your body through fasting to where it heals itself and you can live as long as you want. So I'm
Yeah.
curious how you came to that conclusion.
Let me give you one example, and then I'll come back to the realities. So WHO, during the COVID period, at some point, put it on their website that people should start looking into the faith-based activities. Apparently, what happened was when they look at the faith-based community, the death rate to COVID was lower. The only difference between somebody who says they have faith in a God and the person who says they don't have faith in the God is the one who has faith in the God has a little hope compared to the one who doesn't, who is rather in fear because there is death. Scientifically, we know that fear is actually the trigger of death. And faith also gives a human the highest immunity. In fact, there's research that shows people who have faith in certain things. It doesn't matter what you have faith in. So long as you have faith that you have life, your immune system is boosted. So if you take back to the early life, the caveman who would say that there was no God to give me any instruction, and compared to Adam, who said that there's a God who guided him as to what to do, right? Work the ground. If you go to Genesis 1, work the ground. Now, the difference is that Adam just followed the work without any fear and have a hope that there is a God who told him that he will never die. So that kind of boosts his will to live. The one who does not believe that there is any God who is there to look out for what I do obviously has fear. So the cavemen, they have fear. So if they don't have any food to eat, if they don't have anything to eat, they don't have any hope. In fact, we are devising what we call the faith cycle. Faith cycle only works, which is the faith that brings immunity, only works when you have gone through one hope cycle and you have seen something that tells you that what you believe in is correct, which is you may have felt like you were sick, but you believe that you're going to be well and then you are well. That's how people usually pick a faith and continue to move that forward in life. So put those two people, they are fasting. Say the caveman walks around, they can't find any food, right? And take the person who says, I believe that there is a God, but they are not thinking about food. And I'll come back to why they're thinking about food is a factor. They're not thinking about food. All they believe in is they've been asked to work. So if they're focusing on the work they're doing, what happened is the one who is not thinking about food, the body is not expecting. So all these enzymes that are needed to digest food, the hormones, everything, it doesn't activate. But the one who is in anticipation of food and not getting food, now the body is craving for it. That is where the problem comes in. Let me explain a fundamental human mechanism that underlines everything we do, and you will understand why this mindset of craving becomes a problem. The mechanism is called adaptation. You've heard about it, right? You know,
Yeah.
adaptation. And basically adaptation is you go to a place, and if it is a very cold area, ice, frigid temperatures, your body, first of all, gets a shock. And when the body gets a shock, the body needs to now overcome the cold that it feels. The next day, it should feel better. The next day, it should feel a little better. So over time, if you live longer in that area, your body gets used to that cold sensation. So it becomes threshold over threshold. So what happened is your cold, the senses of the cold condition now begin to diminish. The receptors the numbers begin to go down over a period of time. And that is how, if you go to the hottest part of the world, humans there, right? Surviving almost the same length of time. You go to the coldest part, humans surviving there. Why? Because we have this mechanism where anything we focus on, we can overcome it. It means it's in the head. You get it? Everything is in the head. You focus on it and say, it's cold, but I'm going to brave this. I'm going to be better. So your senses begin to respond. The same thing applies to food. If you tell your body, okay, I don't have food, but I'm okay. I don't really need it. So the next time when you have less food, you can survive it. When you have even more less food, you can survive it. More or less, and then your body becomes adapted to those. Okay, so that's how the adaptation mechanism works. Now, do you know that same adaptation mechanism is now what makes you live? Why? The way we understand it is God put it in humans for what reason? So you survive and live forever. Okay, the same thing, if you get sick, you can actually use the same adaptation threshold to get adapted to the sickness and be better. And this is where the brain factor comes in, where people who say, I'm sick, and they lie down. The COVID period, those who were in bed and were not going out, saw what happened. The death rate was to the roof.
Oh, yeah.
But those who got out and got into the sun and did brave it, and they feel that there is illness there, but they walk around and say, I'm okay. Then the adaptation mechanism kick in. The body immunity now begins to set in and let them overcome that step by step, and then they're on the threshold of recovery. So if you take it back to the olden days, the point is that the cavemen did not know this adaptation. The question is, did the early religious people, did they understand the adaptation? Okay. The adaptation was the only instruction God gave to Adam. But people, when they read the Bible, they don't know that was the adaptation he gave Adam. Okay? Even most of the scientists have looked at it, they don't know that statement God gave was really the adaptation mechanism. Are you ready for it?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So Genesis chapter 2, if you go to the verse 15, that is where that instruction comes in. It says, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord God commanded man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat of it, you will certainly die. So this is exactly the two things here. You see, the first one says he put him in the garden to work and to take care of it. Okay? So that tells you that if you are to focus on the work, you're going to be fine, because he created human to live forever. Okay? Then after that, he gave the instruction of what will happen to him if he follows the other thing. That other thing is what many readers miss. It says the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So it means if the tree has some hallucinogen in there, right? Let's assume that is what it is. You take it, suddenly you know what good is. You know what bad is. Don't you think that when a bad happens, you're going to be afraid?
Yeah.
Good. And what does the fear does? Now go and check the scientific data. Fear is the trigger of death. This guy called Julius Caesar said it, cowards die many times before their death. Because as soon as you get into a state of fear, your body goes through what we call the oxidative pathway. So your body now begins to fight. Even your breathing and everything is inefficient. You struggle. Okay? Compared it to somebody who has no idea what he's supposed to be afraid of. Like a little kid, and there's a lion there, he doesn't even feel afraid of the lion. There's no fear. He doesn't care. But the adult who knows the lion has already fainted and on the ground and died, right? You see that? The difference is what fear. And he's hyperventilating. And you see when people are in fear, the way you hyperventilate, your heart can even stop because your body told itself that you can't tolerate the situation, and then your heart can stop. Here, God clearly said, do not focus on that. If you focus on that, you're going to know the differences between what is good and the bad. And when you know, you are surely going to die. Why? Because you choose the bad. Okay, now let me give you what those differences are, and I'll use science to confirm it, and you'll see. The good in this case is what he told him. That is work. Okay? The bad he's going to know is pleasure. You'll be surprised. You ask me, why is pleasure a bad thing, right? Okay, let me give you the scientific outcome, and then you see why I'm saying that is what is happening here. Bodybuilders, you lift weight. It's work, right?
Yep.
You see that your muscles build. Okay. Let's go to the brain. They say the people who use their brain, the professors and the rest, they live longer, right?
Correct.
It's also work. So working the body, working the brain, and there are so many examples in between where the work make you stronger. For example, if you are sick right now and they say, hey, you need to be healthy, you need to exercise. That's what they'll tell you, right? Exercise is work. So all that I'm telling you that they say make the human body live is work. Now let's go to the pleasure side. As soon as you focus on the pleasure, the adaptation mechanism setting. If you're to focus on the work, the adaptation mechanism setting, that's why when you lift a weight of 5 pounds today, your muscle build, you can go to 10 pounds, right? You keep going 15, right? You keep going. Good. You get adapted to it. And so it becomes an addiction to it. And sometimes you like doing it, right? Take the food side. You eat a little meal and your mind is, I need more food. The next time you want more. That's the adaptation mechanism kicking in because your mind is on it. Your focus is enough food. So it won't be enough. The next time you add more, oh, it's good. It feels good. It won't be enough. And then you keep adding more. People gain and gain weight. They get cardiovascular diseases. Now, if you check, the leading cause of death is what? Cardiovascular. Blood sugar. Are there enough food that is killing us?
Yes, it is.
So it means if you pursue pleasure as a focus, your mind will never have enough. You keep hitting the adaptation zone. And if you don't get more, your body now goes into withdrawal. This is the basis of what even alcohol, drugs goes through the same mechanism. So everything that it gives the body pleasure, if your mind focuses on it, you get addicted to it and you can't have more, even including drugs as well. Do you know that cardiovascular medicines, humans have now become adapted to it and they don't respond to it now?
That's crazy.
Painkillers, we can't respond to it now. And blood sugar control medicines, we are becoming adapted. So that's why they've gone through now the biomechanisms, which is they are now using Ozempic and how do I call it, Wegovy and the rest to now see if they prevent you from your appetite.
Yeah.
Okay, now they're going to try to take your mind off the addiction on the food.
Wow.
Okay, to help you to now reduce the weight because the addiction is what is leading you there anyway. So if I now limit you from eating the food, then maybe at that point I cut it off. But here is the problem. Because the mind is still craving for pleasure, so if they stop the injections and at some point they start coming back, they're going to crave for the food more than they did before.
And just don't stop. Don't stop taking the Wegovy or...
If you can continue to take it, this is what will happen. The Wegovy will also get to a point your body get adapted to it.
Yeah.
And it won't respond. So this is the instruction God gave here. If you choose that, he says, surely die. It means there is no way it will get to a point where your body is going to be okay. You will get to a point where your body will give up. So that is the instruction given to Adam with the scientific information we have. We know it. The caveman doesn't know this. That is why the caveman will die very young. And so our data indicates 20 to 30 years they're dead. But the first human that God put into the garden, according to history, lived for 930 years.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said the only reason people die is because of fear.
Yeah.
For the most part. So my question is, why wouldn't they just live forever? How come they died at 930? Did they finally have some fear?
Yes. Let me put it this way. Because they broke the initial state and they had some fear in them. Okay? Once you break that initial state, you are fearing them, you are dying. And so that is why actually he took them out of the imaginary state. The state they were in, we had the Garden of Eden, and people are saying, oh, they were there and God angry, God punished them and threw them out. Actually, that state is a state where you don't need much oxygen. Okay? It's a higher energy state. So if you look at the chemistry of the human body at a certain high energy state, you don't need food, you don't need anything. Your body will continue to live. In fact, if you look at the Bible where Jesus, they said that Lazarus was dead. And he says, no, Lazarus is only sleeping. Why? Because his body rested in the oxygenation state. It is a higher pH, so no microorganisms can actually survive in that body. Okay? And you hear people say, we drink alkaline water and our body is fine. They're trying to mimic that condition, but that condition only comes in when you are in a state of joy and your electromagnetic state actually goes higher. So they, although had fear in them, that is why they were continuing to be encouraged by prophets, angels, giving them encouragement, saying it's going to be okay. So all they're doing is keep their will to live on. So although they are dying, the dying is a steady decline. Compared to the one who has no idea, no encouragement, nothing, is afraid, they decline much faster and they die by 30 years of age. So the dying was still there. And till date, if you ask why all these prophets and Jesus came and all these things, is to actually redirect humans' mind to now break the fear cycle completely and reverse to that state, which is the glorified state that Adam and Eve were in. So people talk about salvation, but they don't know exactly what they are talking about. They talk about blood poured and a whole lot. No. If you remember, this is why Jesus, this particular statement of fear, he made it this way. Let me see if he can convince you on that. He said, seek ye first the kingdom and its righteousness, and all these things shall be added. Now, all these things there are actually the same pleasures that you didn't focus on. You're going to gain them all. So Jesus was the first person to come and explain that mechanism. Okay. Now let's see what the seek ye first the kingdom is. The kingdom means you are returning to the energy state that Adam and Eve were in. And how do you focus on that? You focus on that by being righteous. That is why it says, and its righteousness. The righteousness is basically living for the good of somebody else. That's how God created us. So if I say, I'm going to care about this person who is not well, I'm going to find every medicine to get that person well. Right there, my mind become occupied on work. My mind is not on fear. It's not on anything else, not on pleasure. Everything I do is for that. If you do that focus, your body continue to live. Okay? Then once you generate what the person needs and you see the person in a great state, your energy state go up and you are in a state of joy. This is where the not dying, everlasting life thing is coming from. Scientifically correct, which is we know from the joy state is that joy state has the highest immunity where you don't get sick. In fact, there are evidence of people who will not get sick and not need any medicine, including Jesus himself. You remember this guy in the Bible who was taken by the chariots, Elijah?
Yeah.
Elijah, the guy who commanded fire into an altar soaked with water and the God versus Baal worship contest. That guy just walked. He just got into chariots and gone. Why? Because this is the part that, again, we are decoding. God created humans to be able to ascend and descend between the energy states of the heavens and the earth. So for him, he got into the chariot because he managed to transition into that state. Let me give you another evidence of the transition. You remember Jesus transfigured. He took James and John to a mountain. And when they got there, they saw him transfigured into a light energy state. And then at that level, they saw Elijah, who was moved on a long time ago, and Moses, who had moved on. They were standing next to him, and Peter and James were shocked. And he told them not to tell anybody. But that was the transition state. He was showing them that as humans, you can transition to that state and your body will not die. Okay? And then he transitioned backwards. Why? Because he had to now go through the final transition, which is when the body dies, what happened to it? If he is to just transition and gone, nobody will understand. So he transitioned back. And when he transitioned back, what did he do? He lived until he got killed. But he kept saying, if you die in a state of joy, your body lives forever. And he used the Lazarus one and says Lazarus is asleep because his body is not going to decay. He died in a state of joy. Immune system, everything is an alkaline state body. It will never rot. Do you know, go to Rome, the bodies that the Catholic Church is preserving there, they call them the incorruptible bodies. They died and the body will not rot.
That's crazy.
They call them saints because they figured this out. Now, there is a Reverend Sister here. This is even here in the United States. In our long lifetime, it has happened. If you get a chance, I will planning to visit it. It's in Missouri. Her name is Reverend Sister Wilhelmina Lancaster. If you Google it, you'll see it. She died and she was buried during the COVID period. 4 years after, they were going to exhume the body to transfer the body to another place. They saw the legs sticking out, the coffin, the casket, everything rotten. Everything, flowers on it, all rotten. Her body intact. The clothes she's wearing intact. They couldn't believe it. 4 years in the ground. Lazarus spent only 4 days. Right? This is 4 whopping years in the ground. So now they put it in an open place like something right now that people go watch the body. But she's somebody who created, I think, a convent and created certain things that gave her joy, that every day in her life, she is in a state of joy. So it means this kind of joy state and the body living forever is really true, real. Scientifically, I was curious, the Jesus' transfiguration thing, and I was going to check. I said, does human body actually glow? Because Jesus did glow, right? And I checked. Yes, every human body is emitting radiation. Okay, we are emitting radiation. And the phosphorescence and the fluorescence, we have tryptophans, we have phenylalanines, we have tyrosines. And I asked myself, why did God put all these fluorescent proteins in us? Sure, it's all for the state of joy and to transition into that electromagnetic state. And we don't know, so we don't use it. Okay, so people who know it use it. Now, back to your question. How will the caveman know this? He doesn't. How will the one who believes in God know it? Yes, he will know it because the preachers are telling them, even when they don't understand the science, they're telling them that, hey, if you do good to people, your body is going to live forever. That's what Jesus kept saying all the time. And anytime he comes to a place, if you remember, he will breathe on them and say, receive the Holy Spirit and say, do not be afraid or fear not. He used every time to break the fear first. If you can't break the fear, your body goes into oxidation. You're dying. So this is the kind of things we're going to digest in deep sense. Why all these things and all these things about prophets coming in and telling them, change your ways. The truth is, human beings, we are rational. You can't just tell people, hey, change your ways, and it changes. What I'm doing here is actually what we should have been doing, which is let the science tell what their stories are, so that people, when what they've seen is really rational, they're going to evolve towards it, right? The idea of people getting addicted to things and dying. In fact, we put it on our podcast. We know it there, people are dying. We know it all the time that we are getting addicted to food and drugs and everything, even including sex. And we are even trying to show it to people that even when you go into a marriage, right? And your mindset you go is, yeah, I found this beautiful woman and it's all that I need is pleasure on the woman. Schumer, we found that when that happens, the marriage desire goes down. The same mechanism of adaptation. You get adapted to every pleasure relations, and over time it's dead. Now, if I do a survey right now, married couples are going to tell you, intimacy between married couples, down.
Very true.
And dead and gone. Now, the question people may ask is, what has happened? And I'm saying adaptation happened. The mechanism is the underlying mechanism that was intended for survival and to live forever. And we are using it on what will let us die, exactly as God said. When you get to know the difference between good and pleasure, which of course the good being work, that makes your body strong, you, human being, I know you would choose what? You would choose the pleasure.
Of course.
and you will put your focus on it. Also, Chuma, do you know that the choice of the pleasure is not our, call it is our default state of every human? Okay, let me ask you. If you have enough money to buy food and there is work there, will you do work?
It depends, but no, probably not.
Naturally, you will not. Unless somebody tell you that work is fun. Fun for what? Making other people happy. Or
There you go.
creating things for happy people. As soon as that is it, you're going to go for the work, right? That is what we call godly. You see the difference? You are choosing the work. Now, you are not choosing the pleasure. But if you are not doing for somebody and not for fun of somebody and it's just you, and I have food to eat, why do I have to work? I just hit the couch.
That's true.
Good. And when you hit the couch, look at what is happening. Your adaptation mechanism sets in and says, my body wants to die. Okay. So if you really enjoy what we are talking about here and you really want to know more, please be sure to subscribe, give us thumbs up, and also share the link with other people who might be interested. And you can also join us on mynaturaltalent.com, join our radio podcast platform where you can get to most of these conversations on how you can actually focus on your talents to really increase your longevity. Also, we have assessment platform that you can go in there and assess yourself and understand more about yourself, just as we are trying to do here. Great. That was a great question, though. And hopefully we can continue to get more questions and use it to dig more into this. Are you convinced?
I was doing research as well while you were talking, and it seems like it's definitely been brought up in the Bible before, but it seems like it's more theological, mythological. So if you're very deep into the Christianity and the Bible and you take that for what it's worth, then yeah, of course. But also if you look towards real life, it depends. I'm not going to say yes or no because life is weird. We still don't know how it started. We don't understand anything. So I'm not going to say for certain that it never happened because you never know. So yeah, who knows? Who knows? If you believe, I'm not going to say it's wrong. I say it's more subjective, whatever you believe.
And I think that's why we are trying to inject the real data, which is what does the current feeling and the data say about how people feel. Then we say the science also shows this. In this case, the science supports that fear and all those are the reason people are dying, and good health is coming from work. People who work and focus on doing good for other people, which we call spirituality. So yeah, we do have a lot of these connectivities, just like I told you that even it's the beginning of all these things we don't understand. So even the writing that we call the Bible is more confusing than what we expected. So for example, was Moses there to see all these events? Of course not there. How did he compile it? People say, hey, divine. Okay, divine inspiration. If it is, then why over 1,000 translations of the same message, right? And who is confused? Is it God or the people? When we say even Christianity has over 44,000 denominations.
Definitely the people.
Of course, definitely the people. So it means that if somebody created you and didn't give you many instructions, but just a simple instruction, then our journey to understanding the whole process is the confusion. And so the idea that, a God spoke to somebody and they wrote it word by word and it's perfect, that's something I personally, as a Christian, I say no. It is as they interacted with God and what they felt that they were hearing from God. So they write it there. Are they way off? Probably not. Why? Because the scientific data is gradually proving after 4,000 years that these warnings really are true, like the one I've just given.
Actually.
That it is true. So we're going to still keep digging in step by step, and you will see that the longevity pattern is really there. But even medicines are only for people who don't understand and are existing in oxidative state. All these redox reactions people talk about, that's what our body actually does.
I'm sorry to cut you. Maybe in the next one we could save for it. I'm curious about, since you say medicines is for those that don't believe or things like that, what about mental health medicine, like depression, anti-anxiety medicine? Maybe we can talk about that one in the next one. So this one doesn't get too long.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.